بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن نبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we will continue where we left off in the previous class. So we mentioned about the takbiratul ihram, and we said that with that takbirah, when the person says Allahu Akbar, they've officially entered the salah. It is called takbiratul ihram because with it you're entering, or by saying it you're entering a sacred status. Things that were halal for you before become haram. Once you say Allahu Akbar, that takbirah signals that things such as eating, drinking, even talking that were all permissible before become haram with that one takbirah. And even more important, the scholars in Islam have said that with that one takbirah, the person is supposed to leave everything else outside the salah. When you say Allahu Akbar, your whole focus should be that salah. And the scholars in Islam, they used to say, when you pray, you should pray like a person who is going to depart, a person that is going to leave. This is important because imagine, just for a moment, that someone, Allah forbid, said to you, pray 2 rak'at, and after those 2 rak'at, I'm going to kill you. Right? Or pray a salah, and after that salah, you will die. Now, imagine how that salah would be. How would you pray? Would it be the same way that you prayed Asr just now? Or would it be different? Chances are, most likely, your salah will be the most focused salah. It will be khushu' on a level that you've never had before. You'll even increase it. You'll make it longer. Not for the sake of salah, but for the sake of your life. You want to live longer, so you pray longer. But imagine if you had this mindset, this mentality, which with each and every salah that you pray, not having to be threatened, but keeping in mind that there's nothing that is promised in life in terms of its length, in terms of how good your life will be. So if you come with that mindset, each salah will be a very special salah. So with this takbirah, you enter the salah, and your whole focus should be in that salah. One of the du'as, and there are many ad'iyah, different du'as that the Prophet ﷺ taught us, when beginning the salah, especially the faridah, it is a dua that is said before starting to recite the Quran. This dua, the scholars in Islam, they refer to as dua al-istiftah. Dua al-istiftah, meaning basically the opening dua. And there are many versions, different forms that are mentioned. And there is more than one correct one, because the Prophet ﷺ, throughout his life, he would change the dua that he would say. And this dua, one of the purpose of the dua, the scholars in Islam, they say, again, it brings back that focus to the salah. It involves praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the dua, you start by saying Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. So you're praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and again with that, bringing your mind and focus to the salah. One interesting point to mention is that in the madhabs, the different schools of thought, the majority of the scholars, they say that this dua, this istiftah, it is dua that should be said, especially in the fariḍah. Right? Imam Malik, rahimahullah, is of the opinion that you do not have to say it. So you start off by saying Allahu Akbar, and then you just start reciting Quran. Whereas the other scholars in Islam, the majority, they say you say Allahu Akbar, and then you start with the dua al-istiftah. Whereas the sunnah prayers, and this is something that the majority follow, is with the sunnah prayers, there is no need for dua al-istiftah. So the dua al-istiftah is only for the fariḍah, whereas the sunnah prayers, there is no dua al-istiftah. So, for example, the sunnah that you pray before Fajr, you start Allahu Akbar, and then you start reciting. And also, this goes the same for Taraweeh. Taraweeh is a sunnah prayer. So, as opposed to the Isha, which is the Fariḍah, the Taraweeh does not have a dua al-istiftah. But again, there's difference of opinion, and both sides have valid points. One important thing to mention, and this goes for the whole spirit of the salah, is that the salah, it grants people that peace and tranquility, but only for the ones who pray with a mindful heart. When the Prophet ﷺ is speaking to Bilal radiallahu anhu, he mentions this. He says that we find this peace and tranquility in the salah, that this peace comes with the salah. And Allah Azza wa Jalla says, أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ, that with the remembrance, or by the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the hearts find peace. And subhanAllah, it's amazing to see today in the world that human beings across all different spectrums, different walks of life, generally they will tell you that there's a void in the heart. Everyone feels this. There's some sort of emptiness. And people, they try to fill this emptiness with many different things. Right? This is why some people, they start abusing substances. Right? They do drugs to numb that pain, that loneliness, that emptiness that they feel in the heart. They drink, they take drugs. Some people, they try to fill that emptiness with money. Right? They keep buying things and trying to find satisfaction and pleasure by buying things. And people find whatever they can in order to fill that. Yet the truth remains one, that the only thing that can fill or satisfy the heart, it is the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, one of the past scholars in Islam, he said a very beautiful statement. He said, if these kings and these princes knew about the tranquility and peace that we feel when worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they would come and fight us for it with their weapons and their armies. Right? And again, if a person does not have the Iman, then all of this sounds like gibberish. What do you mean there's peace and tranquility in prayer? When I pray, I don't feel anything. Right? But if a person brings themselves to it, and they focus throughout the prayer, and they really contemplate, then they will attain it. In Western society today, they put a lot of focus on meditation, right? That's what they call it. They say, I meditate, I take some time out, I focus, I clear my mind. Right? And if you look at the Salah, subhanAllah, the Salah, it ticks all these boxes, one by one. Right? Like we said with the Takbirat al-Ihram, as soon as you say Allahu Akbar, it means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater. He's greater than your worries. He's greater than any problems that you face in life. Those payments that you can't make, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is far greater. He will take care of it. He will help you through it. That divorce that you're worried about, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help you. That marriage that you're looking forward to, but you don't know how to achieve it, how to go about it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater. And with it, you leave everything in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is, it is that spirit of the Salah that really separates people. For one person, Salah is a burden. Right? Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ. That it is something big and difficult, enormous, except for the khashi'een, those who have khushu'. So a person, he finds it difficult to pray. He finds it difficult to make wudu. He finds it difficult again and again. Whereas other people, not only do they feel that peace and tranquility in their prayer, but they long for that prayer. They pray Fajr and they can't wait for Dhuhr. They pray Dhuhr and they can't wait for Asr. This is obviously a very high level. It's not easy to attain. We speak of it, we wish to achieve it, but it takes time. I'll share with you a simple story of one of the Imam in the past. He was speaking not about the Salah that is maktuba, obligatory, but he was speaking about Qiyamul Layl. And he made a profound statement. He said, for 20 years, I had to force myself to wake up and pray Qiyamul Layl, prayer at night, for 20 years. And it was only after 20 years that it became easy. That I would wake up even if I didn't really have the intention to wake up. Now what's the point of this story or this statement? It shows us that nothing is achieved without effort. Right? We speak about the pious people before us, the Prophet ﷺ and the companions, and how they would describe the Salah and what they would feel in their Salah. But we tend to forget the enormous effort they put into the Salah. That how they would make sure to pray in congregation, how they would make sure not to miss the prayer. All these things, it led them to feel the appreciation and the satisfaction that comes with that effort. But today we want that satisfaction without the effort. It is mentioned that one of the scholars in the past, the pious people, he said, for 40 years, 40 years, I prayed in the masjid and I did not see anyone's back. I did not see anyone's back. What does that mean? It's an eloquent way of saying, for 40 years, I prayed in the first row, right? Not the second row, not the third row. I prayed in the first row. And other scholars, they would say, for 40 years or perhaps even more, I never missed takbiratul ihram, that first takbirah that the Imam says. And again, with great sacrifice comes great reward. And the beautiful thing about the salah is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He rewards both in this world and the hereafter. You receive that satisfaction in this world before you receive the reward in the akhirah. When it comes to rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, some people, you tell them, brother, if you give charity, you will get a house in Jannah, you'll get this in Jannah. And they'll tell you, that's Jannah, that's later on. What do I get now? Please tell me what I get now in return. And it's true in a sense that there's nothing wrong in wanting a reward in this world. That you give for the sake of Allah, and Allah Azza wa Jalla has promised you that He will return, He will bless you in this world before you receive your blessings in the akhirah. Right? So the prayer, it helps achieve this. And on the topic of the prayer in general, if you look at the Muslim Ummah today, this is a very serious point. How many people are Muslims today? Does anyone know the number that people say? How many Muslims are there in the world?
1.8 billion.
1.8 billion. Jazakallahu khairan. Close to 2 billion, right? Out of them, how many follow the Quran and the Sunnah the way that the Prophet ﷺ described it? Because out of the 8.1 billion, there are many people who might say that they're Muslims, but they have beliefs that do not align themselves with the Quran and the Sunnah. Right? Now, we don't know, and it is not our job to open people's hearts and say, do you believe in this? No. But I'm sure you can agree with me that it is far less than the original 1.8 billion, right? And out of those people, how many people do you think pray? Not 5 times a day, but even once a day. It's far less. And out of them, how many people pray 5 times a day? And out of those who pray 5 times a day, how many people pray with the khushu', with the focus, with their heart and mind paying attention to the prayer? You'll end up with a very small number. And if you compare that, if you look at the situation of the Muslim Ummah, it doesn't come as a surprise that in history, when Muslims were successful, when they were the leaders in science, when they were the ones that were there to set the example, whether it was in a religious sense or it was in any other field, Muslims, they excelled, right? And when you look at them from the religious point of view, they were people who were praying, people who fasted in Ramadan. Yet today, that number, it decreases and decreases. And yet, we as Muslims, we say, where is the help from Allah? And the salah, the scholars in Islam, they say it is that key to success. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu used to say that if you want to know about a person, any person, then look at their salah. If you want to know how this person is, then look at their salah. That's the only thing that you need to really focus on. Doesn't mean that other things are not important, but because salah is the most important religious aspect, you can get a fair understanding of the person by looking at them. Do they pray? And if they pray, do they pray on time? And he said, if you find a person being relaxed in their prayer and don't really care much about their prayer, whether they show up or they show up on time or they pray at all, it is an indicator of who that person is. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of the biggest benefits of the prayer that Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions, especially in this world, is that prayer prevents you from evil. Inna salata tanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkar wa la dhikrullahi akbar. Wallahu ya'lamu ma tasna'un. That this prayer, it prevents you from evil. Imagine praying 5 times a day. If you pray on time, just that will help you be away from evil. It is difficult for you to pray and then go to the club and then come back and pray and then go back to the club. No. You choose. Either you stay at the club and you stay at the evil places and you miss salah, or you stay at the masjid and you pray and you miss out on the evil things that are happening. There's some people who have said, I pray. Not only do I pray, but I pray 5 times a day, alhamdulillah. But at the same time, I do evil. I cheat, I lie, I steal, I do things that I should not be doing. And the scholars in Islam, they've said, it is not possible, and this is an obvious fact, they say it is not possible that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells a lie, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not tell a lie. So if you pray, if you are praying 5 times a day, and that prayer does not change your life, and you feel that still there's an emptiness, still there's something that is not going wrong, and that is not going right, then the problem lies with you. That your prayer is not the same way that it should be. It is not the way that it should be. How many people pray today, but their minds are absent? How many people pray today, and they do not even pray in the proper way? They might do things that nullify their prayer without even knowing it. Right? And this prayer, it is a constant struggle. It is something that needs to be perfected and worked on. Just like marriage, right? As an example. I imagine that the majority of the brothers here are married, a good portion. And if you ask any man or woman who is married what it takes, they'll tell you it takes effort. It takes a lot of effort. You don't just get married and that's it. You get what you put in, right? Some days are good, some days are bad. Some days it feels amazing. Some days it feels like this whole thing was a mistake. When you come to prayer, if you focus in your prayer and you keep building, you will reach that goal. But you also have to be prepared that as a human being you will make mistakes. Some people, they pray Fajr and then they don't pray Dhuhr. And because they didn't pray Dhuhr, it puts them off completely. And then they start praying. I didn't pray Dhuhr, so what's the point of praying Asr? I didn't pray Asr, what's the point of praying Maghrib? Right? But that's not how prayer works. That if you make a mistake, the only thing that is required is to make up for it. To rectify, to correct the mistake that you did. And this prayer that is done in the masajid, it has social benefits. The congregation in the masjid, it is, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in more than one hadith that the reward of praying in congregation, it is far greater, in some hadith 27 times more virtuous than praying by yourself. And knowing that, a Muslim should put extra effort. The scholars in Islam, they say, if a person lives within about 2 kilometers away from the masjid, this is a fiqh aspect. They say, the masjid, if you hear the adhan of the masjid, then you should come. Some scholars have even said it becomes impermissible for you to stay at home if you can hear the adhan. This is in the Muslim countries, right, when you can hear the adhan outside. So if you hear the adhan, it is not permissible for you to pray at home. You have to answer that call for prayer and you have to come to the masjid. Now, people have asked, especially Muslims that live in the West like ourselves, we do the adhan, but we do the adhan inside the masjid. So the scholars, they've made an estimation and they've said, if you can hear the adhan, usually you hear the adhan up to 2 kilometers at most from the masjid. So if you live within that area, then you should come to the masjid. Anything further away from that, you don't have to come to the masjid, but it is still very much beloved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is important because here in Victoria, we only have one masjid. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask each and every one of us, not just the imam, not just those who are responsible of taking care of the masjid, but every single person. What did you do? Did you come to the masjid? Did you pray in the masjid? Did you spend time in the masjid? It is the house of Allah. So, from a social aspect, the masjid and the salah, it is very, very important. When we talk about other things that are connected to the masjid, and we'll discuss this later on, the i'tikaf, just as an example. The i'tikaf, the scholars in Islam, they say i'tikaf can only be done in a masjid. It can't be done in a house, it can't be done in anywhere else, it can only be done in a masjid. Some scholars have even said it's only supposed to be done in Masjid al-Haram, in the Prophet's masjid, in certain places that are specific. But coming back to the main issue, this salah, it has so many benefits for a community. If the salah is established, both by people, individuals, and communities as a whole, then it brings about a lot of benefits. And those benefits we see in this life before the next. And if you have any problems, the scholars in Islam, they say the most beloved act out of all the acts in Islam, it is the prayer. It is the first act that will be asked about on the Day of Judgment. So if you want to see how you stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, look, you don't have to look at how much charity you give. You don't have to look at how much you fast. Just look at your prayer. Is your prayer good? If your prayer is good, then inshallah everything else will fall into place. But if there's problems with your prayer, if you don't pray at the masjid at all, then you need to ask yourself some difficult questions. And we'll conclude with this inshallah. And this goes for the sisters specifically. Since the sisters, as advised by the Prophet ﷺ, it is more virtuous for a woman to pray at her home. Sometimes what happens is sisters, they delay the prayer. Right? Sometimes it might be for a valid reason. They might be very busy and they don't have time looking after their children. But as humans, they might fall into a form of laziness, that they delay the prayer. And this is not a good practice. Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, that hadith that he narrated from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that when he's asking the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what deed is the best deed? What deed is the best deed out of all the deeds? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, praying on time. Praying on time. And the scholars in Islam, they say, why did the Prophet ﷺ say praying on time when there's other things that are also mentioned? Because it comes back to that fundamental issue. If your prayer is correct, then everything else will become correct. So the Prophet ﷺ was focusing in that hadith on the most important issue. And inshallah, we will stop here.